Recording in progress.
Kayaaní yoxsatini ʼatudli.átk. Yaagi ʼatánk nastan. Yaag achra hastu hiti yig gwashkiwe kliatke Héen tunach ati wudletik. Héen tunach ati wudletik we hiti yig. Wan qanins akawa wat aqashtakat yig ya akawsakha we Héen. Atakhtashi hetwasa ti I hitki ya chaguksa ayay kiyo. Ya khana ha Wooch we Wooch itkhir ʼatánk adat ejagachtune. Aqaqone adat yu qagachtilla we ha Wooch in studel tu gawu atagige yejene. Was atagige ashu akatud. Jayag genki Jishugur sati at Jayag genki jakutiete at adat yaqagachtilla. Yawa achtu yake ade wuchineji yene chaltakat yuhan. Ach hanakaswu ant. Hastu qach aya yutach watank gwash qachte hasgurta art. Yawa achtu ati. Chalingitaya adat yutach watank. Adusak eqa. Gachtus agach saku yaha yuqatanki. Jayagu genki hasaw saku that hasaku ken ko hastu tawasaku hasaw saku. Washkiwe qati yaha yejine tuwat. Yawa yayagi wush kanakhutuda at ya yes at gachtilla yech. Yewe Sabu at Master of Arts in Teaching Indigenous Languages at ita yes. Qonea ya kai gachtilla tu. Qotla tu wuch gachtilla yech. Yachalta kat ya anaski katru yuqatangi. Kach qatitlatzin. Dreach was a good chatwe ʼatánk. Ye gursa neer. Ya ha ani kach ya hastu ani kach. Gonna chishach sa achi. To I guess a good thing get chenach yuchetani. Good. Okay, what was I talking about?
I heard something like ite, E.T.
Ite, yeah, ite is
Remains of.
It is the remains of, and then if you say ite something, then it's often the next one. So you'd say ite talk next winter, ite kutan next summer. I can't remember exactly what did I say. Yeah, late dark nastan. It's starting to snow. Oh, I remember. There was some other stuff. Yeah. What else? That's it.
Right, something about studying together, our work.
Yeah, our work together. We're going to talk this evening about our big halftime show. So what's expected of you? There's kind of three ways to say. There's these three terms: a degige, a shuvu. Oh, a kiki. I didn't say that one. And a katud. I gotta check where I think it's katud. Anybody know any of those? So a dagige, a shuwo, a kiki, and a katut. I'll write them down. I thought I closed my mail.
This is pretty good for you.
A gajillion? Less than a million?
Okay.
Well, these are notes from class last night. Okay, so we have a dagige. I gotta check the spelling on that. We have a shuwu, a kiki, and a katut. I think I'm missing it. Anybody know what any of these are?
Want to say a shuwa is like part of it, and a kigi is half.
I see you get.
Yeah, you get is in there. The gi get. Go about the other two. And so these are very similar things, but they do have some little differences. I just want to check something real quick with my audio. Okay. So a dakike is the middle of something, and it works really well for like geographic things. So you could say, on dakike ʼatudli. There's a lake in the middle of town. So a dakike is in the middle of something. A shuwu is half of something. So like, this is a thing. It's not very common anymore. What would that be?
$50 coin.
Nickel?
Yeah, $50. And then you could say, let's do a little more closer to what we are. What would that be?
Like 5:30.
Yeah. So shuwu works like that. A kigi is also half, but it's more like if you had something, especially like a deer, and you cut half of the torso, it would be like one half of the torso. It works really well for that. So it is also half, but it seems a little bit more literal, I guess. I don't know. And then
Would
you
that
can
be more
have,
for something that's divided physically in half?
yeah,
You know, like a $50, well, you're not taking $1 and slicing it down the middle. You're not taking an hour is metaphorical.
exactly. Right, so like if you did cut it, then it would be a kiki. Or you could say a kiki shuwu. What do you think that would be?
Is that a quarter?
Yeah. And then, so a kiki is like kind of half of it, and a lot more like physical, sort of literal type of meaning. And then a katut is sort of halfway, like if this was, what was that? Brim? Chakwe, brim, you do a sakwe, kakwe. Kainach, kagas, kainach, show it. Kainach, Iyosaka, kakwe ge tuasaku. Just a katut de koa. I forget how it goes. There's a coffee commercial and they say just half a cup. And they say, and then they try and they say fill it to the rim with brim or something silly like that. But ʼatūt is halfway, usually up inside of a container or something like that. But you could say ʼatudli.átk, which would be halfway up a mountain or something. Okay. Thoughts or questions about anything?
Would you use daqiqe for like, say you needed to like mark the center line on a board or something like that?
Yeah, I think that would work well.
Is the own version of book
Ik. We're ready for those. Yaksha.
Can I ask a question
Ah.
about can also be used like saying you're like halfway in the middle of the journey or halfway through a walk. So you're not in the middle of something geographically. You want to say you're halfway to your destination.
That's a good question. Okay, so a place I like to go to sort of study these kinds of things is this like spreadsheet of nouns. So this is from Jeff Lear. And so if we went here and we look under the K's for ʼatūt or ʼatūt. So here it is, and we get half, part way up it, halfway up it, the inside of a vessel, container, or containment. So I feel like no, like probably like hayanaguti shu. Like I feel like shu would work well for that, like because it sort of works for kind of abstract concepts, kind of.
Okay.
But ʼatūt would work for like we're halfway up. ʼatudli, we're halfway up the mountain.
Okay. Or like.
But I think ʼatūt is really focuses on the inside of a container, and then that's why you could say ʼatudli because you're halfway up the face of it. So it has to do with more like filling something or like that. Good questions.
Héen ʼatudli átk or átk.
Well, like
halfway up the canal.
yeah, we yak ʼatudli, Héen, and yeah, that's like get to baler. They're called Charlie Sheen because Sheen is a baler. So. Okay. This little thing won't close. Okay, there it goes. So it is Tuesday. That means we have 10 sentences that we all translated over the weekend. So going through, ask questions if you got them as we go through. But as we do, I'm just going to say it in English and you give me what you came up with. We'll always continue to emphasize there's no right and wrong here. There's going to be several variations for some of these sentences. And we are in the business of trying things out and just seeing how we do. So, I found your book.
What a.
That one of
Hot, hote,
Cheesh. Okay, and online?
What a.
Cheesh.
I got the same. The question, were they looking for the book or did they just chance upon it?
Ooh.
Seemed like there were two different
sad.
versions of finding.
Which one would be which one?
I went with Huate, which is they were looking for it. I think.
Okay. Any others? Well, I would say without any additional information, However, this is one where I'm not entirely certain, and I've gotten different answers from different speakers. So when we talk about finding, let's go into our favorite verb dictionary. And we're also going to point out a couple of things with this verb dictionary once I find it. There it is. Okay. I couldn't find it. So if we go to find, so here we have to, usually as the result of searching, we have awat a, which would be chwat a. Tak nadak ta yidachwat a, or awat a. They found the hammer under the table. Then you could find a complex or large object. So in this case, tikh chwasat a. I found a rope. You could find a spherical object, awak kwati, a kawat a. They found the Canadian goose eggs. There's a stick-like object or plural round objects. A kadach kuhita kautusat a. We found a pencil on the floor. Then there's to come upon something often without searching. So then you'd have dukakhank dukachwashi. I found them at their uncle's place. Tetsu akachwushi. They never did find it. So one of the things that causes confusion for me, so you see a, and all of those for the verb root to find a whole bunch of stuff. And the first one lists as the result of searching. And then when you go to kachwashi, it says to come upon something. I really wonder if that's the other way around. Because if we go say search, we'll go look up that as a verb. To look for, aqaqushi. So here you have aqaqiyishich awe yite. Because you searched for it, you found it. This seems to back up what they have documented. Achtaqa yakunchashin. I'm going along looking for my mother. So what was interesting to me was that you have kuwashi, which means to sort of like feel around in an area. And that's kind of how you get looking for something. But then akachkuwashi is to just come upon something. And so I haven't found a definitive answer. But what we can also sort of, when we come into questions like this, we could sort of say, well, that's curious because it seems like it might want to be the other way around. So we can go look up both of them in this dictionary or in this reference guide. So we can go to A, which might be under T, finds them, found it, end of entry. So it might be more under T. No, right? But what about under she? So we go to SH, and then we get singing, that's a different root. Now we get searching, looking around for it, came across, discovered it, found it. So that is what it seems like, is that the looking for something is not the same as the finding it with intending to find it. It seems like A is the one where you found it after you were looking for it, which I thought was just interesting to me. It caused some confusion, but again, I think it isn't always what our English brain would expect it to be. Any thoughts or questions on it?
Where's the U suffix come from?
Because it's your book.
But I thought that. Okay.
So usually if a noun belongs to someone, so you would have cook, but then you would have, and that would change to I. Kuku. So the relational suffix likes to pop up on the noun that's being owned, and then it's an I unless it's a rounded end. In this case, it's rounded.
Ah, that's the part I missed.
So any U vowel plus any K, X, or G, underline, pinch, whatever, this, double O, high tone, low tone, any combination of those, it's automatically going to be a rounded ending. It just triggers the rounded ending for some reason.
Sheesh.
My child vomited this morning.
ʼatudli.átk.
Sheesh. Anyone else?
I had ʼatudli.átk.
Okay. Sheesh.
I had Akshyari Usas in Yasutat.
Sheesh.
Kayaaní awahas yatsutat.
Sheesh.
I'm not sure if this was said or not. I had Kayaaní Wooch utat with an L in it. Sounded like the first one that was said might not have had the L classifier. That could just be my bandwidth being low.
Well, actually, let me move the speaker.
Okay.
Gonna hear all the rapper noises
That's fine. We all know we speak loud enough.
Okay, yeah. So, and also in the room, try and speak loud. Okay. Any others? I might say, Achyedi wutleku ya tutat. We should probably go back into the verb dictionary. Go find vomit. Vomit. So there is a difference between these two. So uwahats would be felt like vomiting, and then wutleku. Oh, which should be high. Oh, no, that's different. Okay. So wutleku would be to actually vomit. And so which is interesting because hats is like if we were walking and there was some vomit there, I would say hats aya. So the noun for vomit is hats. This verb root has to do with flooding.
flooding.
Mm-hmm. And just going into here, checking. And so, and there's a few of these that we're going to just run into this, where there's a couple different ways to say it, but they are a little bit different. And so in this case, you'd have wutleku if it did indeed happen. And so if you said uwahats, like achyeti uwahats yatsutan, if that was how you started the conversation, I'd say, wutleku again? What did they vomit? Because you could have both of those. So like, again, coming back to context, it's not like you're saying something totally different if you were to say uwahats, but that's just and you could, So like they were nauseous, they felt like vomiting. Any questions about that?
Why do you have a short A instead of a long A?
Oh, it should be. Well, yeah, probably. I'd probably say it long and high.
Not short.
It could be short. You could write it short.
I had long and low.
Oh, really?
What difference does it make?
So with ya and ya, there's no real difference. And I might even say this one short. I think I'd say it long. I don't know. So these ones, when you say like ya and he and you, the vowel length does not affect the meaning at all. So these can always be ya, he, we, you. And there's a bit of standardization here, which means usually when we write them, we're often writing them short. But then sometimes you'll hear them long, and you'll just write them short. But if you're writing down somebody's story or speech, you might be more concerned with their exact words. And if that's the case, then if you heard them say ya or ya, you might write it long. But there's some things like when you say ya yagi, which is today, and you say ya yidat, that's right now, and probably also saying things like ya ʼatudli.átk. In my mind, that I just hear those ones long. But I don't think, again, I don't think if we said ya ʼatudli.átk, people are like, what are you talking about, right? And so I just think it's sort of, this is in that category of like, it kind of goes that way, but it doesn't affect the meaning. Okay. Just like up on this one, you could also say, it doesn't affect the meaning. Oh, did I just give away the answer for the next one?
Ah.
Okay. They all whipped up soap berries. What'd you all come up with?
Has a cow
Anyone else?
Still share what you have. It might be right. There's not just one right answer.
I actually got very close to what was up there. But might have just switched around.
Oh, okay.
And your questions, even as somebody who's in advance, there's not a single question somebody has asked that I haven't learned something new.
So I had has a ka with ka. Let me see.
Okay.
Chawllichas a cawllicha.
Okay. Any others? Well, and for this one, you could say but I would probably say but those are two different things. You have three different things there. Like you could say it, you can move all three of those around. This is probably the way I would say it. And then but you can, just for clarity, you can a whole bunch of different stuff. Doesn't have to only be soap berries, even though soap berry is the root.
But yeah, so in the dictionary, it made it sound like it was specifically for soapberries. So therefore, you shouldn't have to mention that it was for soapberries.
Yeah, right. And so
That was my thinking.
Right, this is another good. So we're going to go to, we're not very far. Scroll down the W's. And I think it's under whip.
Beat. It's under beats. Yes, you have his whip and yours is beat in there. But that's why I gave everyone the hint last week to look up soapberries for their verb.
Where?
See right there.
Oh, to beat him up?
Yeah.
What a silly entry. Okay, so
Okay, this ones they use do look like something you could beat someone with.
That's true. Well, that would be like, I guess you could say I whipped him into shape, but when you say something like that, you're like.
Well, I found it in the verb database.
Oh, good. Okay.
What does the to the power of H on a verb mean again?
The what? Oh, the little H. That means it's a fading verb root. So that means in a repetitive mode, it's gonna stay low.
So if it's not that, then high?
Yeah. Okay. If it's open, yeah. So ijinch katlachak. So soapberries is in parentheses there. Chokli katutlachak. We are beating up. I don't like that. We're
So if it was in a command form, would it be? I think going off of Salagao's question is, if you're giving a command to someone, would a speaker understand that you're commanding them to go whip up soapberries, even if you didn't put soapberries in it?
Well, I mean, you could do this to eggs. Like if this is how you get eggs real frothy.
So there's a different one for frothing.
You could do this with whipped cream.
Yes.
Frothing?
Yeah, there's another one because you can froth up soapberries before they get to the beating stage.
There's another verb for that?
I can't remember if it's another, but frothing falls. You find soapberries under frothing. Where they're foaming.
Well, this is to be foamy though.
Can you put like a verb inside of the object for doing?
Wait, a verb inside of the object for doing? What does that mean?
Like I'm trying to figure out 5.
Oh.
And
we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very curious.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. You could put a noun inside of a verb. There's a big hint for that one. Okay, so yeah, soapberries do foam up, and this is saying this is when you say yaneshchit, that means it's becoming foamy. So this is a state verb to be a certain way. Like if, I don't know what else could be foamy, but I guess the whipped cream could be foamy and stuff. And so, but that doesn't mean to foam it up. So then you would have the beat up verb. The whipping.
I will not allow additional time until you show me a completed.
So yeah, I do think it depends on context though, because like if we were all at an event and we knew that soapberries were going to be prepared there, and I commanded you to go whip them. I don't know what are we going to land on for the English verb for this?
I think it used to be beat because they were called egg beaters, and that used to be the term for beating things, for
Whisk.
whipping. Well,
Do you whisk things?
You do whisk things. But you can also whip things up without whisk. If you're really desperate, you can do it with a mason jar, a fork, a wooden spoon. Like
Right. You do it with your hands.
You can do it with your hands.
Anybody ever tried doing soapberries with without some sort of electrical instrument. You have? How'd it go?
Well, it was kind of a punishment because I accidentally said I didn't like them. I was 5.
Oh, so then you got
it.
forced to do them by hand? Oh my.
Yeah, it was a hard lesson learned that day at 5 years old.
Sean. Well, I was at a camp and we tried to do them by hand.
I was not successful at 5, but it kept me busy.
Well, there's these girls who were, they had I think a spoon, just like a regular, like a wooden spoon, I think. It wasn't like a fancy, because if you look at the soapberry spoons that they used to make a long time ago, they're very thin, because I think you had to get that thing going pretty fast. And you had to do it for a long time. Kahukwa is a pestle. That's pretty cool. Hukli is soapberry. Akshahuk, they're grinding it or beating them up. Fine, that's what we'll say. And then akaushahuk.
You have whipping in your diction.
Which is what I like to say. So akaushahuk tells us something when we see this verb in the perfective. This tells us this should be a 0 conjugation verb. And we'll go look in Eggleston's verb database just to confirm that. Oh, and here it is. It's a 0 act verb. So kashahak is how you command somebody to beat up or whip up something.
Or grind.
Or to grind it. That would be like if you hand someone some cilantro and a mortar and pestle. You say kashahak.
I was thinking like grinding wheat, but we can go there too.
Yeah, kahwe.
I was thinking coffee beans.
That too.
Kashahak.
Flour?
Yeah, like the little sifter thing.
No, like actually taking it from the grain to make flour.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's done with grinding.
Because it's like a seed, right? And then you crunch it. Or corn. I was somewhere and they were doing this.
Schinken chocolate lily. There we go.
Chocolate lily.
Okay.
The one that has like rice root.
Yeah.
This has the rare L apostrophe suffix. I don't really know what that means. I'll try to find out. Okay.
When
Nobody
we have
wants-
thematic prefixes, how do we know exactly where those fit in?
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, but did we ever move back to Gloria's question of if the context was like, there's already soapberry, someone could just say the verb. It would be.
Yeah, so I think you would probably need to say soapberries unless there was some context where it's like, we're going to whip up soapberries later to give to the people. That's going to be your job. And then if I looked at you and I said, kashahak, like, all right. And I wouldn't go grind some coffee. But if you just said that, just out of the blue, I would probably say, dasakak kwashahak. What am I going to grind up? I have a hard time translating that one. So yeah.
So then would it be good to say that if you see something in parentheses that's more like an example?
It's more like it's
like what it's for.
Yes. Or like the meaning is maybe not specifically in the
Okay.
Yes, you're not doing word for word translations for the stuff in parentheses. It will always be a hint for you too.
No, when you look it up in the verb dictionary.
Oh.
And you see the English translation, it has parentheses. And they do that quite a bit, where if you look at it and you say, I don't see that in the Shinget, and then they say, because they're probably getting these sentences from speakers who had to think of a thing in order to say it.
Goodness.
Number 4. Oh, wait, hold on. We did have a different question, so.
And there was one in the chat.
I think a book is not a complex object. Although, it could be. But I've always heard But if you had, let's say you had a book that was like a family Bible, and within all the pages are a whole bunch of stuff that you don't want to fall out, then that could be satay, because you have to carry it so it doesn't upend, it doesn't spill.
Is there an actual like way to tell if something's a complex object?
Yes, if you have to carry it a certain way so it doesn't get messed up.
Oh.
That's usually what it comes down to. But then sometimes like a chair is a complex object, but also because you have to think about how you carry it too.
So if you're like carrying a bunch of oddly shaped things?
Well, if you're getting into a bunch of things, then there'll be a different handling for that. But if you had
Then
it,
would like a watch be complex? Because I'm
What's that?
just like gonna grab it and carry it, but it's got about a gajillion tiny moving parts.
yeah, a watch would. Although there's one for like a hoop-like object that people might use for that.
That's what they use for bracelet.
A bracelet object.
A phone would be a complex. I say achchitsate, achkahitsi. I use a shortcut for phone. I just say my wire because I think it's cool,
A wire.
and because I don't want to say achchitsate, achkaltu atunachi chatuti atkiat. Because I'll
But
say.
you know, when I carry my phone, I don't have to think about how I'm carrying it. I just grab it. I'm not carrying it carefully like a family Bible.
That is true, but it has a lot of moving. But sometimes you do, because I've picked up my phone plenty of times and accidentally called somebody, like on a FaceTime call. It's like, oh no, I don't want to call anybody right now. And so, but if you've always got your screen locked, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Okay.
So the classifier depends on whether or not we have a screen lock. Check.
That's right.
What about the thematic prefixes? How do we know where those fit into this particular recipe?
Yeah, okay. What do I have? I think it's... No, it's not this one. Hold on. Let me find which...
I think it's
Because a kashlehak has the cut is a thematic, right?
Yes, the cut is thematic, yes.
yeah, clink it for conjugation handout.
Oh, yeah,
Is it that one?
I mean, I guess it's here. Okay, hold on, let me find it.
I do think that is really interesting for that. Beth was bringing up about, is it the complexity of carrying it or the complexity of the internal components of an object?
Right.
Is it the external person, is it the subject or is it the object of complexity? Because one's about us moving it and one's about the actual object.
For me, it always comes down to, do you have to think about how to carry the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you're communicating. Carry it without spilling it, carry it without uncoiling it, carry it without tangling it. And so all that stuff is sort of built in to there, and then you get a variety of different sort of, but because there's so many carrying verbs, like it just sort of, it's almost like you just need to have a bunch of different ways to categorize things. So you get classifier switches, then you get thematic prefixes.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. I gotta find which one. Hold on. Talk amongst yourself.
That's a good question.
I have a bunch of slideshows that show this kind of stuff. I gotta figure out which one I want to show.
I like that you bring this up, Beth, because yesterday in advance, we learned that you can put a thematic prefix, a face on, what was it, cold or frozen?
Being cold.
Being cold, to just make all one thing of saying my face is cold. And that was pretty fun in advance yesterday.
Yeah, we have a specific verb for having a cold face.
Of course we do. It's sing it.
Right? We got a verb for
Is
that.
there also a specific verb for having specifically your nose be cold but not the rest of your face? Because That would actually not surprise me either.
I've never heard of one, but if you made it, it would be ʼatudli.átk. But I think it's ʼatudli.átk. It's interesting.
My question on the thematic prefix is, how do we really know what that, like ka is the horizontal surface? How do we really know how that changes the meaning? Because I don't see a horizontal surface in whipping.
Oh, okay.
The different costs.
Yes. So let's do this. This is not the one I was looking for because it's slightly outdated, but it'll get us started. So the thematic prefix does come in between the object and the conjugation prefix. So you're always going to have perfective markers, conjugation, any of that stuff, nah, they're going to come after the thematic. And the thematic is always going to come before the subject. So you do have 4 different spots in here. So within the thematic prefix, you can have 4 different things. I think I've only seen 3. But so if you think of these, it's like every space is like a little wheel. You can activate something on that little wheel if you want to, but if you do, that is a new verb. It is not the same verb. So if you put j on there or t or sa, it's a different verb. So so going from left to right, the first thing you hear, the first thing you say to the last. Spot number 1, you can have k or ka. This k has to relate to some given space, like in kudziti, yakudzige, and it is the same one for weather, wasakuwati. There is a k object that we've learned. Like there's an object pronoun k, and I don't think you can have both of them. So if you have k, that will push the other one to switch to ka. The other one there is compared to. So if you have this ka, which there are 2 others, which we're going to see, you must also activate the the aerialis from the conjugation. And that's why you say things like yekuge and yekusigeng, where there's a KW in there. It's because there's a ka and a On spot number 2, this is where you're going to get, balloon time. This is where you're going to get body parts and things like that you can put onto a verb. Hand or possession, to, the inside of something, or feelings or thoughts. Sa, the voice or neck. I'm going to get rid of sa. We're just going to say sa. The voice or neck. Sa is 99% of the time voice, and only occasionally neck. Like ringing, there's a verb for wringing the neck of like a chicken or something. And that's going to have sa. Sh is the nose or a point. Da is around. Ka is mouth. And ka is also mouth or opening. But ka is a little bit different. Sh is the head of something. Sh is the end of something. It's called athematic, which we'll talk about later, but it really just shifts the focus onto the action and sometimes keeps an object from being in there. So this, if I were to kind of fix this, I might sort of add 2 more spots and move this one over to here. Let's get messy. And then move this one up to here. Where did it go? Okay, we'll do that later. Okay, so on spot number 3, you can have ka, spherical, or you can have ka, or ya, the vertical surface. On the fourth spot, you have ka, which is the horizontal surface. So you can have ka and ka, but you're usually going to get this one and that one. So these are the, and this isn't all the thematic prefixes. There's more than this. There's finger, there's butt, there's all kinds of things you could put onto a verb, but these are the most common ones. And this is where they pop up. If you want to, I do think I could put a document up that I think we've looked at before, which is incomplete, but it does talk about this stuff. And it's called the Verb Component Handbook. And I think the latest version is this one. Okay. So someday I'll finish this little book. What it does is it goes through left to right and just explains what these things are and gives some examples. So there's a preverb section, there's an object section, and there is a thematic section. So here it has it, I think, kind of properly listed with 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it shows some examples of what happens to a verb when you add a thematic prefix. So here you have Yewune, it happened. Yejene, they are working. ʼatánk, they are talking. ʼatudli.átk, they are thinking. Wooch, it happened. Wooch, it ran out or died off. ʼachisht, they're spanking them or whipping them. ʼakachisht, they are clubbing them on the head. Or ʼashachisht. Yatir, it's difficult or hard. Kayaaní, it's a hard mass. It has caked together. Héen, they kept the song steady. They defended themselves by being kind of mean. So and then it goes through several other examples and it shows how you can get different combinations. Ya and ka and ka. Like ka is like by far the most common one. I think it's always like, I'm ready to pair up with anybody. I love other thematic prefixes. I'll hang out with them all the time. And so this, and then it shows, and then it also lists all of them, the most common ones anyways. Can't list them all. Number 2 has a whole bunch more. I think number 1, 3, and 4 probably has all of them. But in 2, you can get a whole bunch more. Thoughts or questions on any of that? Do one more, then take our break. Nobody wants that.
Wekle asa tua dusigu.
Okay, it's cheese.
Let us do to wa ushku.
Cheese.
Kle asa tua sugu awe.
Cheese.
Where to ushku.
I came up with 2 possibilities just to keep life interesting. I came up with Kles asa awe kles du tua ushku. And then I came up with awe kles ka tua ushku.
It's cheese. Any others? This one has a lot. Yeah, this is interesting. It's cheese.
Yeah, this was hard. This was hard.
I looked at it, I was like, this will be fun. And I was like, oh, wow. So there might be multiple ways to do this, but the way I would say it, and so But it's interesting because you could say kesh asa is nobody, but I don't think nobody can function as like an actual, to have nobody do something or nobody want something. And so you would end up with kind of structurally, people don't want that. So it's a bit of a trick question because I think Tlingit would, the grammar of Tlingit would probably say something like that. It's a thing that people want. It's something that nobody wants. And so you end up switching it to nobody in English, but I think in Tlingit, as far as like the literal, what you're saying in Tlingit, you probably end up with people don't want it. And this is really interesting. And this is very fine-tooth comb type of things that we're also trying to figure out in Tlingit. Like, would a high fluency birth speaker prefer to say, ach tuasaku kesh ibulchuni, or sorry, kesh ach tuasaku kesh udechuni, or kesh ach tuasaku udechuni. And I think you'd end up with the second one. Because the first one is trying to say, I want you to not get hurt. But I think you'd end up saying, I don't want you to get hurt. But this is, it's very interesting because it's also pushing together. And also we have that. It probably would have been an easier sentence if we would have said nobody wants it. But I like nobody wants that because it sounds fun to translate.
So when I was doing this, your all's homework, I realized that the word I wanted to fit in for you all, which was nobody, didn't really work with this sentence, but I wanted to make it work. And so I took it from more of maybe a storytelling perspective and threw in a semicolon to have that repetitive structure. But I don't think that's actually, I realize now that we should have done an easier sentence.
Yeah, because like kesh asa or kesh adusa is nobody. But it doesn't seem to work well linking it to like the subject of a verb. For example, if you were to say, nobody knows. Do we know how to say that?
You've told this one to us.
Nobody. When are we going to take a break? And I would say, I wouldn't say it, but it could be funny if I did.
So how would you say nobody has time for that?
Nobody got time for that.
Nobody has time for that. Okay. So that one. I would say kesh. Oops, wait, switch to Hawaii. Kesh ka ji kesh gao ka jit ute. Or that. I guess then it'd say wait a kach. That's interesting though. People don't have time for that.
Okay, back to nobody knows it.
But nobody knows. Oh, I guess we'll say it. How's that?
Ishka asuku ita.
Well, that'd be like, so nobody wants it. We're swinging back to katua saku or kesh katua ushka. How would you say I know it?
Asuku.
Asuku. That'd be Dusaku. Somebody knows it. People know it.
Wududzaku. It is known. So how would I say I don't know it?
Ekwasaku.
So in the Tlingit grammar is really going to say it is not known, I guess, or people don't know it.
This Woodzaku.
Nobody knows it. So it's interesting, like when we get into these sort of, and I think exercises like this help us to think in the language, to see like, Tlingit would just approach that thing differently, right? That sort of concept. Because you would say, nobody wants it. And nobody is a thing, right? And nobody can be a subject, right? Or an object, right? You say, I don't know. Well, I guess you'd say, I don't know anybody. You could say, I don't know nobody. But I think an English teacher might correct you.
What about, like, there is not anybody that wants that?
Nobody exists that wants that. Okay, now we are full on in the spiral. So, Wooch is the whirlpool. So get out of the whirlpool, take a little break, come back at 10 till. Sheesh.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
That's another English term, anybody. Because in Tlingit, we would just say them alls or the people, right? Instead of using the word anybody, if we were going to say how you just said it. Is anybody not?
Yeah. So I
or
guess we would
does
say.
anybody want this? If we want to go back to the wanting.
Are you all okay? I would probably just land on that.
Right.
And then, because I think in Tlingit, I don't think you would ask someone, are you not okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you could say, to a guess, yeah, you gotta be just real cautious with stuff, I think. Right. Can I help you? Or let me help. Like, I guess that translates to, can I help you? But so you have, eat kadishi. Let me help you. Eat get kadishi. It's a hortative as a question, but that really means, can I help you?
Right.
But it's like, yes, no, let me help you. Okay, anyway.
I was just bringing this up because, everyone should have read this chapter, and there is a cha'asa.
Mm-hmm.
And so just bringing it back for folks that just like how we discussed nobody to if it mirrored anybody.
Yeah, coming back to anybody, like how does that concept even work in Tlingit? Is like, so you might say, Adusai tuasagu yeo sene. Who do you want to do it? Adusai tuasagu yeo sene. Adusa, whoever. Like, I don't care.
Right.
Right.
When answering the question versus saying, does anybody want this?
Because we are getting ourselves, there's another thing we got to field test with some speakers, which is we're trying to say something like, Adusa du tuasagu kahwe kejitlitzak. I think that's how you'd say it. Whoever wants coffee, raise your hand. Adusa du tuasagu we kanyachiti cake.
Why would you in that context say you alls?
Well,
because you're addressing a room?
Because, we had this too, like, should the command be plural? Okay. Whoever wants a coffee, raise your hand.
Versus putting on the outside.
But you're talking to what? Now the command is going to a single person. Because you don't know if everybody there, maybe only one person wants it. So you end up with a bit of a distributive concept.
Okay.
Because if I knew, like if we're at a ku'ik, Adusa yesh nach sati ke jitlitsak, which is complicated because you are using a plural form of that verb, but you're telling them to only raise one hand. Because if you said keiji tetsu, they would raise both their hands. Okay, we gotta stop. Okay. Did you hear me making noise? Making noise is in parentheses.
Ooh.
And in parentheses, it means you don't have to have the making noise part in your sentence necessarily.
Ye hua isene I ge ach.
Sheesh.
ʼatudli.átk.
Sheesh.
I had ʼatudli.átk.
Sheesh.
Kayaaní.
Any others? I would say ʼatudli.átk. Did you hear me? And we had to put making noise in parentheses because you can also say this. And what does that say? This is a big question. And it might help.
Do you understand? No, wait.
Are you hearing my voice or my words?
Yes. Did you or can or you? Did you hear my voice? Is I think how you'd have to do that. So like, did you hear me singing or talking? And so for Shengit, when it comes to hearing somebody, it differentiates whether you're hearing them like walking around or making some sort of noise, as opposed to hearing them talking. So there is a difference between those two things. And there's also, it's a little bit different. Who was the guy? It was like a phone commercial. He would say,
Do you hear me now?
there's your phone guy, whatever he was, Verizon or whatever. ʼatudli.átk. Yidat, do you hear me now? So this one, are you able to hear me? That is different than did you hear me? Right? So these are like very slight shifts of meaning. And then you can have just because there's always more. And what is this one asking? ʼatudli.átk.
Do you hear me talking?
That is close.
Do you hear my words?
A little different. A little bit. I want a bit more than just hearing.
Are you speaking to me?
Listen.
Do you understand me?
Can you understand me? Yes. Because okay, so you could say. I don't know. All these slides will be up, and you can take a look at them. So you could say, "Khat." Oh my! I think that's how you say it. ʼatudli.átk. This now, someone just said this one. So we have, did you hear me making noise? Did you hear my voice? Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me? Did you understand? Can you understand me? Do you understand me? Oh, this would be, I guess this would be this one. Sorry. ʼatudli.átk. What's left? They're all like super closely related. Heard me making noise, heard my voice, able to hear me, understood
Did
me.
you hear what I said?
That's close. But in order to do that, you have to do what? I guess it's just like get deep into the weeds day. That's what it is. It's deep grass.
Is it can you hear?
Well, that'd be ʼatánk. Well, if you're trying to talk about like that, do you have the sense of hearing? That'd be a little different.
Okay.
But if you're gonna, you could not do this unless you had done this. How's that?
You
Is
hear
it
me
like
speak?
hear my voice?
So hearing is a zero classifier thing. Zero, 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 and even understanding is a zero classifier thing. The classifier switches to an S classifier here for a reason. So there's hearing and there's, what's
It's
that?
hearing.
Will you listen to me?
Did you listen to me? Or are you listening to me? Yes. So those are all like, those are in English as well, right? You can say that like, yeah, you heard me, but you didn't listen to me, right? And so same type of concept that goes on here. And very closely related verbs, where we see the thematic prefix in effect, we see the classifier, like switching groups and what that's doing. There is more, but we'll stop. Okay.
So which of these are the ones that I would be saying to my teenagers who are being typical teenagers?
This one would probably be pretty relevant. You could say, please. Oh, I gotta look. Oh, wait. I think that's how you'd say it. Did you take time to listen to? Can you hear me now? And can you understand me? Did you hear my voice? And did you hear? Wow, those are a lot. Okay. Your
My
child.
children would officially like to protest.
But shut it down. Get off the Zoom.
It's only allowed in Shinkai. It can only protest in Shinkai.
So, and there's a command form for some of these, like, so you can say, I do say that to my kids, and I say it just like that. And it depends on the context, because that could mean two things. Can mean listen to me. And can mean do as I command.
Could you write those down too, please? I'm taking notes. Notes of all the phrases my children do not want to hear.
Back to language of the homework. You do have other notes.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Your child made me sick.
Your child made me Kayaaní sick.
Jeez.
Iyadi hak wasnik.
Jeez. Any others?
I got the same.
Your child got me sick. Go ask them. The go part's a little funky here.
So why is the I not attached to the yadi?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Because this is a relational pronoun. It's not the so you could say you would say ich sinig, I got you sick, but then you'd say ach yadi yadi du yadi. So again, like coming back to that, what we're studying this week is these different sets of pronouns. The more Tlingit we use, the more we have to figure out, okay, that's this type of pronoun. And you learn how to spot it, because sometimes you'll see it in a verb. Ach tuasagu, it tuasagu, du tuasagu. Those ach, it, du will always be their own words. Good question. Go ask them.
Kaih.
Oh, geez.
ʼatudli.átk ana Wooch.
Geez.
Has kanawus guk.
Oh. Any others?
I just had Kanaus.
I wonder if I've got a Hus in there. I've got low confidence on my Hus usage these days. I do.
Are you meant to be using S more than Hus?
I don't know. I just have I've got a Hus habit. Yeah, so gook and a woos. So like the go part was, as I looked at the sentence, I was like, that's not saying like go over there, because you could construct that. You could say dechande nagu an it. Go see them so you can ask them. But that's a different sort of thing, right? Like when you say go ask them, I think if you're saying that in English, you're implying two kind of commands, like go see them and go ask them. I don't know.
Yeah, so I had it like ask them and then go ahead and do it.
Right. See, because I think it could mean either one in English, right?
But why aren't we using the Hus?
Because them all would be the Hus. When we see them all or they all, that should be triggering the Hus. Otherwise, we have them as a third person, non-gendered pronoun, which is what we have in Tlingit, just automatically.
Singular.
Yes, singular.
So in general, when we see them, we should assume it's singular unless it's stated that it's plural.
Yes. Which I've been doing for a long time, and for some reason I'm triggering into plural. So weird. I don't know.
I heard.
Well, it's contagious.
Yes, I know. I'm contributing to the hussing of the them.
Would you talk a little bit about the verb root that you chose? I heard folks both use ka and woos.
So woos is to ask a question, right? And so ka would be to tell someone. I think I heard ich, which would be invite someone. So in this case, it's like go ask them. So like the context would be, I remember I was sitting, we were doing like some language work, and I asked a speaker a question. And she pointed at a different speaker, and that wasn't even the context. She was teaching us a class, and she was trying not to use English, and she said, wait, ask that one. And we're supposed to like be taking turns asking each other questions. And so the kanawus has to do with like asking a question. So that's the verb that way.
Versus asking them to do something like ka.
Yes, and so ka as a verb root, we'll go to the verb dictionary for this one. And I do have like a slideshow I think we'll look at after break, which is getting into these, like we just did a whole bunch of these ach things, and it lists them all out. Ach, nik, ka, and tan and ʻat are like just very similar things. And when we look at that, I think that even just that statement will make a little bit more sense, maybe. But when we go to ka, so here's this verb root ka. We have to send on a message. We have to say a certain thing, to declare it, to suggest it, to scold, to state the facts or speak plainly, to confess or set the price of something, to blame someone or charge someone, to tell someone. So ask to do, I guess that's maybe where it got a little tricky. To promise, to criticize, to insult, to tell, to announce, to instruct, and to say. So this one is usually like, in this case, say to, ask to do, atyos. And so we'll go look at tell and see if it shows us examples of how that's doing. So in this case, you have ʼatudli.átk. We were told so that we would go somewhere. So this is more like, I guess you could say it's asking, but it would be a lot like a parent coming in and saying, I'm asking you to do the dishes. And that is not a question.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head and I was thinking about the dishwasher.
So yeah, the English verb would be asking, but that's just really sort of putting a nice polite bow on what you're really doing. I think it's a twist of like what you're really saying, I guess. That's how it works for me. Yeah, and same thing, because you could say, my mom asked me to tell you, right? Which is like, in other words, I don't want to say like she commanded me to do it, right? So that's what happened. So with that thing, with the ka verbs, this is what you're getting. Step one, you're getting to say a specific thing, naming the price, making a promise, saying a quotation. Other than that, you're really getting into like, so these are all have to do with a very specific thing. Like they criticize, that's saying something specific, confessed, saying something specific. Scolding is a specific way of talking. But then you get into these ones and you get into like to instruct, to give orders. So you could say, they sent me to work. So it's kind of getting into more of a command than a question.
Oh, and then the other person, then somebody used the invite verb.
Oh, right. So that, yeah, as far as like getting into the ʼik verb, that would be to invite them to something.
I think maybe the confusion came from in the Twitchell dictionary, it says to ask them to a party.
Oh,
yeah, that's where I got it. It was under like to ask.
Yes, okay. Because again, like that is true. And so, this is the first year we've done these too. So we're learning a lot as we go. Because yeah, it's right there to ask them. Like this is a formal verb. This is why you say ʼatudli, because you have invited people to come. You have asked them to come. And so
I'm laughing that there's a command version of inviting someone.
Right? And so you could say ʼatudli, but you better be careful with that one. If there's intimacy and you guys are friends, you could say that. Like they're saying, Sorelda's dekach tilkuch ramen qatchayit. Ha, ʼatudli, invite me. Which is, I guess if you're trying to be formal, sure. But yeah, I just say chetzu, dekach. I'll sit by myself, you don't want to. This next one might be challenging.
Observation. There is no imperative in the conjugator. So I have absolutely no clue how to build the imperative mode.
Okay, it's coming.
Observation and request, please, as you are revamping it.
Did you ask? Are you asking?
I did. I said request. Because I know better than to try to tell a professor to do something.
No, that's my plan over spring break is to, because I was conceptualizing this, because for both commands and prohibitives, they will appear a little different because you can only have second person subjects, right? You can't command a third person, right? And you can't prohibit a third person, right? Like you could manufacture that word to say like, they cannot do that, or it would be a violation if they did it. But you could say, don't do that. Just like in English, right? You can't tell a third, like it does, the grammar doesn't work, right? So there will be there'll just only be second person singular and plural for both of those. But I think I'll be able to compact it and just run through the classifier sets a little simpler, perhaps. So I'm just trying to, I'll figure it out once I do it. And then the other big thing is I think the command and prohibitive will make this part pretty much complete. And then I'm going to copy the entire thing and put the thematic prefix on there, just generically, so that it will show you what those should look like.
So interesting thing I just noticed is in Think It Kenasa, they have ask him or her singular is Kanawook, and the ask him or her plural is Kanye with a Y.
Oh, yes, so Chanawoos and Chanaiwoos. Yes, so
yeah, they still don't use the Hus.
Yeah, right. So Hus Chanawoos would be ask them all. And you could say Dach Chanawoos. Ask them one by one. But you don't have to do that. Okay.
I really like you using Dach.
Maybe I should quiet myself. Okay. Maybe we should quieten ourselves. I think there's multiple ways you could say the same type of concept. But the context here is like maybe we should be quiet. But we put quiet in so you'd know what to look up.
Yeah, because I originally wrote
I
this.
had a lot of questions with this, just trying to figure out what mode I should be using, because I went back and forth with several different ones, thinking, is this future? Is this potential? Maybe even hortative?
Yeah, I think in hindsight, we'll switch this one to a future verb, which is we will be quiet, or we will quieten ourselves.
I had difficulty with the number of syllables.
Well, for Tlingit, should is a complicated thing, which I'll show you folks. Okay, what was that?
I had difficulty with the number of syllables. I wasn't sure where to contract.
Okay. Oh, okay.
For future.
I came up with Kayaaní.
Oh, okay.
And kind of similar, Guashke Yan Shika Truth. It's seen. Say.
Sheesh. So under quiet, we get to keep quiet, to say nothing. I'll just stay quiet. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to protest. It feels pretty pouty to me. A silent person, mad and unhappy. And then we get into to stop talking, to be quiet temporarily. This is shishkat. This is how you tell one person to be quiet. It does sound a little bit, the English equivalent to this is probably shut up. So just be careful. Because someone once was surprised when I said this to a group of students. I was like, it's fine. But it is not the most polite thing to say, but it also has a cultural context. You could say shishkat to someone if they're really feeling bad and talking bad about themselves, or you're trying to get them to stop doing that particular thing. And so it really has to do with to stop talking for a moment, to kind of be quiet. And then here we have to stop talking. So yan edatende, deqayan natin yakaudetzen. They're already improving, so they have quieted themselves down. And then you have a L classifier version, which would be to get someone to stop talking. These are interesting. Like, let's go see if they're in here. I think they are. So here you would have this one. So you could say, if you looked it up in the future, you could say yende agukdetan. And in this case, you do have a subject right there. So you could use, I don't think the conjugator is built yet to show you how to do this once you have the kha on there. But in this case, you could say yende agaktudan. We will quiet down. We will get ourselves quiet. We'll quieten down. You could also, here's a little secret. And so this one I think is a little too complicated for what we're doing right now. Technically, to have should, I think you're going to get this little particle ke and a hortative. So for example, if you said ke yan an, they should quiet down. That's how you would say that. And you could also say ke yan ʼatudli.átk. We should quiet down. But I kind of went a different direction when I did this, and I used ʼatulk. Maybe it would be good if we shut ourselves up. So I guess I would, in terms of which one you would pick, I would say this one has a lot more immediacy to it. Like, we should shut up. We should shut up, right? And so the thing here is, like, for me, there's a cultural context to this one. Like, if you're going to use the tsen verb, I would say, we're just generally being too loud and we need to tone this whole thing down. Like, there's something going on here that I feel like we're interrupting. But for me, I realized we were telling jokes while something important was going on right there. And I was like, oh no, we're going to get in big trouble. So that's, I guess that when I was thinking of these, just today as I was translating them, that's what I went with. But gwash hortative, maybe it would be good if. So I think the other thing too, as we do this more and more, we just have to be very straightforward with the English.
Mm-hmm.
And we're realizing that in the moment. So bear with us. But also, what a cool thing to learn about. Okay, we got 2 more. Hand me a cup of water.
I like how you went completely left field on that.
It's interesting.
After we had the conversation about which verb we were trying to get it to use.
That was a week ago.
No, you're right. It was a week ago. Now we all learned this.
But yeah, ʼatánk and ʼatánk. So for me, ʼatánk is sort of like generally like it's time to quiet down. ʼatánk is like be quiet right now, right? And so I don't know, it's interesting.
I think that's important for folks to know because there is a difference.
Yeah, right. Like for me, if I were to use like the ʼatánk, like something has changed and we need to be quiet right now. ʼatánk is like, oops, we better just like kind of be quiet here. Okay. Hand me a cup of water. Hand me water is really what we're going to say.
Héen Januk.
Cheese.
Hinach Jeet Sain.
Cheese.
Ach,
Cheese. Any others? Achitza in with Héen. You can also say Héen achitza in. But the sa'in is to carry a container full of something. That's why we had cup of in parentheses. Any questions? The lake is frozen.
Yay, nate.
Jeez.
Woodlet ich.
I going with that one.
Yeah, with ʼatudli.átk.
ʼatudli.átk.
Jeez. I have. It's probably a Hus in it. Wait, with the dick. The lake is frozen.
We are woodly dick.
Okay, Wooch A. This, like doing 10 sentences is challenging. Like we're trying to pick ones that are a challenge and these are indeed challenges. For
Why
Thursday.
would you not do yayati for the last one?
Well, yayati is like to be. And so the verb woodlit means it froze.
But the sentence didn't say the lake froze, it said the lake is frozen.
If we look into the verb dictionary, we'll see that frozen will be under the verb to.
Oh. Yeah, and so, okay, so this is interesting because if you say froze and is frozen, those, I guess,
I went with like the same thing as, the cat is white.
Mm-hmm.
I do hear what you're saying, but I think we can also think about this as like frozen being the completed version of freezing versus it being two separate types of words in English.
Yeah, and also Tlingit, It's interesting because Tlingit is not a time-driven language, but English is. So you end up with like the lake froze. And now we're talking about the moment when the lake froze. And the lake is frozen. So I think those are two different, I'm communicating kind of two different things, but also two very similar things. In some instances, there's not going to be any difference between those two. But if someone says, I think I'll go out on the lake, is it safe? The lake is frozen. Okay. And then you'd say the other day the lake froze, right? And so it is linking it to a specific sort of point in time, I think. But for Tlingit, you would say both of those things would be ʼatudli.átk. And ʼatudli.átk could be like right now, or it could be, it's just more like it has already happened, is what Tlingit is communicating. But ʼatudli.átk would mean it's also frozen right now.
So if we also look at the Twitchell dictionary under the verb root, with the DL classifier, we'll see the word frozen there too. And it froze. So ʼatudli.átk is it froze or it's frozen. I go through I translate these sentences too. I'll get a like heads up from Kune. These are not really any easier for me, and I definitely consult a minimum of 3 sources for each sentence. And it's usually the Twitchell dictionary, the verb dictionary, and then the verb database. And then the moment we start having directions or times, I'm pulling out the Tlingit reference guide, and usually now the conjugator. So when I have questions like that, like frozen, I'll do a control. I'll admit, I'll do control find for every time the word frozen shows up in one of these documents.
Yeah, and
can't figure it out.
It's like if you said a person, like if you were to say, like if we were just having a conversation, you said, Gusu Jim. If I said that and you said, ʼatudli.átk, I would be like, oh, he froze to death. Like, so like this would have like, it's a pretty permanent state when it comes to people. But it's interesting here, if you look at, you say, has ʼatudli.átk, and this is the sample sentence in the Niche Story Dictionary. And that means technically they have frozen themselves. But it's so interesting. Like, I don't know why the SH is there. So anyways, on that note, Thursday we'll
like to have fun sample sentences, like throwing people in the fire.
There's a lot of dying in this verb dictionary.
Yes, I've noticed that. Beating people.
I feel like it was an awful hard life back before electricity and natural gas and internet and coal up here.
Oh, that's a great segue to talk up.
Yeah, so talk, there might be some freezing, there might be some difficulty, there'll be some other things.
Life is always hard.
So your goal over the break is to translate talk yourself, even though you've got the Tlingit there and you've got the English, but I want you to be able to demonstrate that you have a pretty good understanding of how every single word of the story works. And so there's gonna be some tricky parts in there. There'll be some other parts where you'll see metaphor and how the language is functioning on this kind of large whole story level from a master storyteller. Zuboff was truly one of the greats, like in terms of the amount of stories he knew, the complexity of his Tlingit, and then just the sort of the patterns and the way that he does tell stories. So it's a deep dive into Taanáx, and then that's what you'll be doing over break. And we'll just go through it all together, right? And so like most things here, do as much as you can on your own, but also know that we'll be doing this stuff together. Thursday, we'll do a couple of those. We'll also continue a few of these verb, so we're at this phase right now where we're changing the objects, and then we're going to change the subject. And then we're going to get in and start putting a few things together, like some perfectives and some fusions. We might run out of time by the time we get to those. But the idea is to just sort of give you folks the conjugators so that you can put them together yourselves, but then also teach you the mechanics into each of these modes so that you can sort of, as you have this book designed to help you just look it up and put it together, you'll be able to sort of begin assembling those yourself and realizing what is happening when these things are encountering each other and forcing contraction. So,
So if I understand correctly, we have the like lost translation of Taka, and you want us to come up with like more of the literal translation.
yes, yes. Because the translation that the Daumenhauers did is mostly for English speakers only.
Is there going to be like a file that we translate from?
Yes. It's on clinkitlanguage.com. Ooh, I'm a tabby cat today. So if you go to Learning Tlingit, Intermediate Tlingit, then you scroll down. It is right here. It's a pages version and a word version.
Wait, is it all the way at the bottom?
Well, there's a whole bunch. This whole top section is a whole bunch of resources for learning, and then the actual semester starts with these intermediate Tlingit 2 spring semester, and then if you go down a little bit, it's there under midterm project. So this is technically the top of the semester, and then the next class will be right above this one.
No, that's not the same one.
You do control find midterm. Take exact.
It says 1 of 1 match.
1 of 1.
And it's only Kuanti.